James, I'm so pleased to be here in your amazing studio stroke laboratory because I always think it's more as like coming into the most interesting shop in the town. But anyway, here we are in the town, which is Lancaster, and I don't know, we seem to have both been here for a long time, but we're not from here.
No.
So,
Well, I'm not originally. I suppose I say, but most of the time it's easier just to say that you come from Lancaster. But I came from Bolton. I lived there till I was 9. My kind of earliest memories of that area are starting to creep into my work, actually. You know, which I didn't think it would. I don't consider myself to be like,
nostalgic.
Well, yeah, but some of the subjects that I paint, like the marbles and things like that, it's all about being young, isn't it? There's something about them that just evoke that kind of that period for me. Bolton was an amazing place, really. Me and you have talked about this before, sort of northern towns, kind of municipal pride in
Absolutely.
art, and the museum, the art college, a municipal aquarium, the art gallery, and it might be sort of grim all the way around, and there's the collieries and there's the mills and all the stuff that we know about. I mean, my road, was a terrace, a brick terrace, 2 up, 2 down, all of that sort of stuff. And the road outside was made out of black cinders from coal mines, just cinders, just that was it. So it was just like a black and red existence. That's kind of what I remember colour-wise. And the next thing along from our house was a little path, and then on the other side of the path was a municipal tip, landfill site.
So you lived on the wrong side of town.
Well,
really.
I was an only child, and there's this tip which I think was a bomb crater, a massive bomb crater from the Manchester bombers during the war. And I kind of lived in there. 8 years old, I would be there on a Thursday waiting for the wagon to come. It came once a week, and you're just waiting for some goodies. And they dump, like a.
But do
you're waiting for a pram, is what you're waiting for, with 4 good wheels on it.
To make a bogey out.
Yeah, to make a trolley out of, or whatever. But sometimes you get some, like a fridge or something. That'd be great. You could make a den in a fridge, You wouldn't be. Anyway, it was all that kind of thing.
When you came to Lancaster, I mean, how did that change from being that kind of the 2 up, 2 down in Bolton
that was,
or even to this amazing studio?
Well, I don't know. The best thing about Lancaster that changed my life was the theatre. The theatre completely changed everything, gave me access to people that were just seemed really interesting and magical and so different and outgoing, and you really brought just made a huge difference to me and my confidence and things like that. And then I went to the wrong school. I went to the grammar school here. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot better now, but in those days, the concentration on art and everything was
minimal.
Sort of cursory, really. And
but how's your Latin?
Even worse than that. But I don't know. I couldn't wait to get out of that school, really. I really wanted the same journey that my mum had, I think, my mum and dad had in Bolton. I would have loved to have, gone to do a foundation course and go to an art college and all of those things. I did actually get, I took my portfolio, such as it was, down to London and got an unconditional place at Goldsmiths. But I never got there.
Why not?
Well, because I'd got interested in music by then. I taught myself how to play the piano and one thing and another, and ended up in bands. And before I got to Goldsmiths, I was doing a kind of rough foundation course, doing some A-level, some bits and pieces down there at the Laban Centre, and because I was interested in dance as well. So I was all geared up to paint and draw and, you know, all the stuff that I wanted to do, but then I got drawn into the pop business, you know, I got as a musician. First of all, I came back to Lancaster and joined a band called the Pharaohs. We kind of set the Pharaohs up with members of a Rock Against Racism group called China Street.
Oh yeah.
And then from there I went down to Coventry and joined the Selector, and we did was a in the two-tone movement. So I played Hammond with them for 2 albums and a lot of touring, and then so I'm drifting away. Do you know what I mean? I'm still drawing. I was interested in sort of illustration at that time. Really, I've always liked narrative. I've always liked stories, because everything's an influence, isn't it? It's impossible to say. You can say what you've preferred through your life, you know, or some things that have made particular impacts, but actually everything that you've experienced is an influence. It has to be, you know, even if it's, well, anyway, that's how I feel. And I've had loads of different influences. I feel like the music is an amazing sort of influence on me, because of it's all use the same words. It's all about tone. It's all about balance. It's all about light and shade. It's all colour.
Yeah.
It's about harmony. Thomas Kershaw, for years, was a massive hero of mine, because he was a specialist painter who worked in Bolton. And this is architectural painting, which is essentially my training ground. When I was in the bands, and all the time I was living in London, and because later I played for Madness, and I stepped in just to do live work and TV and stuff like that. So my musical career, even when I was composing later on for like radio and dance and everything, it's episodic, isn't it? You know, you get work, you don't have work. And alongside that, I started to paint architecturally using traditional techniques, scumbling techniques and things like that. So graining, marbling, all of those things. I got my first tin of scumble glaze from a neighbour in London who was called Tom, another Tom. And that's when I started to research Thomas Kershaw from Bolton, who was probably one of the best in the world. And he used to paint panels of marble, sienna marble or something like that, porphyry or something. And then he'd take them to the great exhibitions in the 19th century and put them next to real panels of stuff, and then he'd invite everybody to come and scrutinise them this far and tell which is the real marble and which is the cold marble. And sometimes he'd paint onto slate so that even it was cold when you touched it and things like that, you know. I mean, and phenomenal paint. And I loved all of that stuff. I still do. I get a lot of joy from it. When I say joy, what I mean is result.
Yeah.
From the techniques themselves. I mean, the happy accidents in what I do is 50% of it. It's allowing the paint to do what it does, especially in the marbles.
So after all the different sorts of works you've been doing, I mean, how did you arrive at, and why is painting marbles so kind of part of your world now? I mean, what brought you to paint the marbles in the first place?
My daughter, Lois, was mad about them. And me and Christine, wherever we went, we'd buy or pick up or antique shops, whatever it was, we'd always come back with more and more and more and more. And of course, they're all grown up now and gone. But we've got all the marbles. We've got them big jars of them upstairs in the window where the light comes through, and they're just fascinating. Anybody's interested in colour and I just think they're magic. Look at they're all over the place, and I know it is odd painting.
Well, it's not odd. It's just
Well,
that, I mean, we sit here. There's little jars of sweetie marbles, if you like. But I mean, the thing is, it's great that you've had them for 20. I don't know how many years since Lois.
Well, I've had them all my life, and the thing is, try and get rid of a marble. You know, they last forever. They're eternal. It's very difficult to break one, but they're fascinating, and I can't. You know, I love painting them. The transference of the skills that I think we've touched on before, but from the architectural painting and using scumble glazes and using building up layers. Actually, a lot of them are painted wet on wet, so it's quite a physical thing. Painting one, you've got to do it in a certain time, and you have to let the paint do a lot of the work and surprise you with how it's, you know, in the same way as marbles are produced. Every single one is unique. I like simple marbles to paint. I like the modest ones. I've got some very, very ornate, beautiful marbles who might be Murano or whatever, but they're already a work of art. But what I love is I love these. Just a penny for 10, you know, in 1960, you know, whatever. Literally, they're the magic. I have to go through them and work out which one goes where and how, you know, and I try and balance the colours. If you know, in Constellation there are 84 marbles are painted, I think, 85, something like that. Not all of them are full marbles, but they've all, you know, they're parts of marbles, obviously. They've all got their different characteristics, and each one needed a different palette. And you know, so but there's a lot of thinking about it, trying to get it balanced and one thing and another. But the fact is, they've all got these different characters as individuals, but you put them together, and they become completely different because they become the reflections of all the personalities that are around them. So they just grow in their complexity and their interest, and they literally take on the colours and characteristics of all the different personalities that surround them. You know, the landscapes are quite loose, aren't they? And a bit looser, you know, and a bit more kind of.
Oh, they're much more painterly.
Obviously painterly, yeah, exactly. Whereas I still use a lot of the glaze techniques with the portraits. There's one of, I think it's one of Christine. There's one of me after I came out of hospital when I was
I've seen that.
bald as a coot after stem cell treatment. I don't like looking at it very much, that one. But
to be quite honest,
no, I do. There's some bits on the there's some bits on the tray. I was quite pleased with those. They came off quite well. You know.
it's good that you can look back on it.
Well, I painted it as soon as I came out. I was kind of like a skeleton, really, but I could paint. And I wanted to do it while all the kind of smells of the hospital, because I had to stay in hospital for it was in a isolation room for days, week. So we certainly got that atmosphere. But no bugger's going to want to have that on the wall, that's for sure.
Coming in here, to me, it is like a laboratory, not a studio, because there's so many things that look like they're being worked on and invented, as opposed to, there's a sense of order and a progression in here, in your work, that I find absolutely fascinating, because it's not at all how, it's not my process at all. It's very, in fact, I don't know many painters who work like you. I think it's really fascinating because you're so meticulous in terms of learning from each painting that you do. Do you ever actually paint things that you go, I don't like this isn't a success? Or do you paint them to success? So you actually keep at it and until it's
got me
acceptable.
What an interesting question. I tell you what I think about that. I do a lot of thinking before a painting. I don't sleep brilliantly. I wake up in the middle of the night and I can quite happily spend 3 hours just in the dark thinking about a painting. Do you know what I mean? And progressing the narrative as if you're like writing a play.
But do you jot it all down or whatever?
In the morning, I'll come. I'll grab a sketchbook and just do a scribble. That kind of reminds me of the process. So you can respond to the paint. You can respond to the desire to paint as a painter and to be working with paint and what it gives you back. All those happy accidents, all that lovely stuff. You can come up with scenarios, and that brings us into like the Windmill series. That's stuffed full of narrative and what ifs and where are we heading. Do you know what I mean? And then there's other things which is just reacting to the world, the zeitgeist, what's going on in the news, which is fucking awful a lot of the time. And it's very. For me, I find it. I can get quite upset in the middle of the night, and you wake up in the morning and you go, how the heck am I going to paint that? Because I consider it to be my job to consider that.
It is the thing. It does fascinate me that the techniques that you have acquired through architectural kind of work or whatever, they are so there in your contemporary paintings. So you're using really traditional methods to arrive at a very contemporary outcome, which is brilliant, I think. And it's unique. I don't know who else does that.
Right.
There you go. You're unique.
Aren't we all?